Welcome, everyone. We're thankful that you can join us today in our final session, our final Just Lunch during Women's History Month. And we are very excited to have present with us today Pastor Vicki Hamilton, who is served on our churchwide executive board and then headed off to seminary. And we're going to hear her story today. So thank you for joining us, Pastor Vicki.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. I have a question.
Yes.
What about your experience in being part of Women of the ELCA? How did that nurture your sense of call?
Well, that's the question that I always chuckle when I read it because I probably didn't know what call meant or anything until I became an active member, I should say, with Women of the ELCA eons ago. Eons meaning about 1984. I was in a congregation in Slidell, Louisiana, the only family. My family was were the only people of color there, and there was a convention, women's convention coming up at that time, and it was an awakening world. And my dear sister in California said, "Vicki, you've got to come because it's going to be in Detroit, which is where we were raised." So she actually hooked me up through her congregation. No one in my congregation seemed to be interested in even going to the convention. It seemed like out of pocket, something that wasn't in Louisiana, I guess. So anyway, I went to that convention in 1984, and I remember the title, "An Awakening World," because that awakened Miss Vicki uh, in a way that I guess I never thought of before. I had been attending Bible study and women's group at the congregation that I was attending, but on that scale, seeing that many women together in Bible study, in worship, singing, just being, um, inspired me to no end. So I brought that enthusiasm back to the congregation at that time and really became active. Um, I was thankful to my sister, of course, but what really became active instead of just being at the evening Bible study, and everything, and being a part of the whole system, I guess you could say, with Women of the ELCA on the conference level as well. So
Mhm.
it was and still is a good experience.
Excellent. Thank you.
Well, Miss Vicki,
Yes,
Pastor
ma'am.
Vicki TV, as many people know you. Um,
Yes, ma'am.
how so that was the end of the last convention of the American Lutheran Church Women, and you were a layperson at that
Yes,
time. So how has
yes.
Welka continued to inspire your ministry now that you have gone through ordination, served the congregation, and now retired?
Well, I think uh, Welker was the background because Welker was sustaining where other things were not, if that makes sense. If y'all ever been in that place, um, so the organization was where I could look to when I was in the congregation initially, in the congregation, and things were kind of in an upheaval because that congregation's women's unit was not very active.
Mhm.
Uh, I don't know if I overstepped bounds because I said, well, there is an organization that can help us out. We're not just in name and theory, we are a national organization. So it was at that time that I helped them to see that the other churches in our conference were probably struggling the same. And then we began to have um, conversation with, and also we were not, I'll use the word afraid, but because it probably just wasn't on their list of things to do. but we were not afraid then to go to other events that other conference women in the conference were having. And that then brought our churches together. So just being on the forefront, I guess you could say, of helping to facilitate the organization, just helping to facilitate. Again, most of the women at that time were elderly, so they had their own sense of how they like to do things. And the young people didn't know what was going on. But when you got them together with some of the other churches, it was like, oh, we got a friend over here. So, you know, the friendship started happening, and people, in my opinion, started caring for one another more, you know. So it's not just the people at St. John's, it was the people and at St. Mark's, or it was the people at other congregations within the conference as well.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So, Pastor Vicki,
Yes,
what
ma'am.
wealth of resources support you in your ministry today? And what resources do you point others to?
Well, I'm a fan of the Gather magazine, so I still read that and I promote that, and sometimes I cut stuff out and take it to I do to the retreat setting that I initiated. When I initiated this retreat that I host called Come to the Well, it was back in 2011 after I had my first bout with cancer. And when I found out um, that I had cancer and had survived, I felt like I needed to pay God back. And, you know, so I prayed about it and asked him, well, what and where and when and how can I do this? And since I had been to other events with women of the ELCA, as I named the big one, the in '84, but also other conference events and everything like that, I also saw a need just to continue um, through like an event, a retreat atmosphere, because I had been to a couple of retreats as well with women of the ELCA, where local women felt that they could attend, that they would be comfortable, that they would be invited, that it wasn't off the table um, just because woman X was who she was, and they saw her in great esteem. But woman X also had issues and problems, just like woman C and D. So for me, having that resource available and the resources that y'all put out, and also in 2015, I had the audacity to have cancer again, and my date had been set for my retreat, and I actually told my doctors I cannot have surgery here. I have to be well by here, and I was giving them ultimatums as far as my health was concerned, because I had already had a list of women that were coming to a retreat in September. And I got a call from one of my great friends and a staff person, a women of the ELCA, and she said, "Don't worry about it. I'll come down and help." And she came down and I sat my little weak self on the side. I still had tubes coming out of my body, draining tubes coming out of my body. And she came down and she helped facilitate. And I actually sat down and just raised my hand every now and then and said, you know, pointed to whatever lady had her hand up and wasn't being noticed. And that relationship has lasted from 2016 to now. So that's the greatest resource is in the personhood of Miss Valora Starr.
Before we get to the last
All
question,
right,
Cindy,
thank you.
yeah, let me just jump in here. So the Come to the Well retreats of
Yes.
Valora has had seed grant money from the Raising Up Healthy Women and Girls program, and
Yes.
this is your time to plug it, Valora, since the deadline to apply for this year is fast approaching, right?
Yes, April 5th is the last day for entering your proposals, and those proposals can be um, as far a vision that you figure that it's not possible without support from someone else, financial support and resource support, because we will also support you in that way. Um, this this is a part of our health initiative, raising up healthy women and girls, so that girls do not perpetuate the health, the physical health, the emotional health, or the spiritual decline of their grandmothers or great grandmothers. And so we're trying to create an atmosphere where women and girls can thrive and can be the leaders that they are called to be, by supporting them in this way. And so I just wanted to say, also, uh, with the Come to the Well, part of what Pastor Vicki was describing is a spiritual retreat that really can't be explained. It has to be experienced, and so it has become. We are now partnering with um, uh, uh, that local feel to it, but it is a very much a national event, that there are people that come from all over the United States to experience Come to the Well. So thank you, Pastor.
Yes, and I have to put one more plug in there. This event, like I say, was to pay God back, and God has paid me in so many ways, graced me in so many ways. And there are times when we have been at the retreat that you can't come with an agenda. You just have to be there. And as one lady came one time, she said, "Yeah, but I need to know what time. What are we doing next? What are we doing next?" I said, "Baby, you got to learn how to sit still." I said, "Because the spirit has already preceded you, and it's in this place, and we cannot disturb her." So yes, there. It, I'm sitting here baffled now because I have no words for y'all. I just have to tell you to come. If you really would like to, the next date is just April 26th or 28th. And there are people who come from all over. I'm talking Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina. I got somebody coming in from Alabama the second time around, Florida, of course. And the blessing of this retreat is that people that feel that they cannot talk to the folks in their own congregations come to the well, and they get drenched in the goodness and grace and mercy that as much that Val and I can give. And sometimes we can't muster. We got to sit down too and just let the spirit work through and in that particular person. But yes, it's unexplainable, and uh, I haven't gotten too old where I can't put them together. I got things just kind of laid out where I know where to pick them up and go, and just pray for whomever God needs to be there at that time.
That's wonderful. Pastor Vicki, you've already shared some, but can you say a little more about how you were involved in the organization now and what you find most rewarding?
Well, now I would say activity is slowed down because I am not in the congregation, and they're very keen on letting pastors know that they do not need to come back to their churches. One thing that I decided that I was going to keep, though, that I had started within the congregation when I was active, was called Girl Talk, which is like a lady circle, one of the circles that we used to call them. And Girl Talk used to meet at the church, of course. I retired, so now I'm looking for places to meet. And so Girl Talk still meets, and we will be meeting this Saturday, as a matter of fact. And those are some of the women that cannot come to the well for one reason or another, and women that still need to have connection with other women of faith, and they come and have brunch. So that's where I'm at pretty much with resources that I use. And then anything that I see that needs to be passed on, of course, from the organization, I pass that on as well, whether they are active in their congregation or not.
Amen.
And some of you might recognize Pastor Vicky from her service as our chaplain for the first and only so far triennial convention that we held online in August of 21, and where we were all learning how to conduct business in a Zoom meeting, but that was a wonderful experience as well. Well, thank you so much, Pastor Vicky, for all the many contributions you've made to the life of women of the ELCA, and especially today sharing a portion of your call with us. We encourage all women to explore that sense of call, perhaps starting in your own congregational unit or as you meet with other Lutheran women and other women of faith. And it's just been a wonderful experience during this Lenten season and during Women's History Month to explore the way that ordained women and lay women have come to understand their call in part because of their involvement in Women of the ELCA. Thanks for joining us. I'm sure there'll be another round of Just Lunches in the future. Take care. Bye-bye.